Fire main retros.
Firing main retros.
Mars gravity's taking over, pulling us down.
When Robinson Crusoe on Mars hit theaters in 1964, audiences weren't expecting much from what sounded like a B-movie with a silly title. But this strange little survival film became something far more remarkable, a near documentary about Mars survival wrapped in Cold War anxiety, studio meddling, and one very temperamental monkey, from real NASA science to recycled alien ships and a leading man who actually starved himself for the role. Robinson Crusoe on Mars is packed with bizarre production secrets and unexpected influences. These are 15 weird facts about Robinson Crusoe on Mars, the film that bombed in theaters but won over rocket scientists. Before we blast off to Mars, make sure you're subscribed and hit the hype button so others can uncover classic sci-fi secrets you won't find anywhere else. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's survive the red planet together. Number 1. The real Martian location. Those stark, rust-colored Martian vistas weren't created on a soundstage, they were filmed in Death Valley, California, one of the hottest places on Earth. The crew endured temperatures exceeding 120 degrees Fahrenheit, a fitting hellscape for a movie about survival on a deadly planet. Cast and crew worked in shifts, filming only during early morning and late afternoon to avoid complete exhaustion. The landscape needed almost no modification. Death Valley's barren salt flats, jagged rock formations, and blood-red sand looked genuinely alien on film. It was so convincing that decades later, NASA scientists would use stills from the movie in presentations about what Mars might actually look like. Number 2. Paul Mantee's real-life starvation diet. Method acting took on a brutal edge during production. Paul Mantee, playing the stranded astronaut Draper, didn't just pretend to be starving. He actually lost significant weight throughout filming to make his performance authentic. He later called it the most miserable role he ever had. The physical toll was real. Mantee restricted his diet, exercised obsessively, and pushed himself to genuine exhaustion for scenes of desperation. His gaunt appearance and visible fatigue weren't special effects makeup. They were the result of weeks of self-imposed suffering. The dedication shows in every frame, giving the film an uncomfortable realism that most sci-fi adventures of the era completely lacked. Number 3. Mona the Monkey Diva. The adorable woolly monkey called Mona in the film was actually played by Barney, and he was anything but cooperative. Notoriously moody and unpredictable, Barney caused constant delays on set. Paul Mantee joked that the monkey needed more takes than anyone else in the cast. Trainers worked overtime trying to coax performances from the temperamental animal actor. Some days Barney refused to perform at all, sitting stubbornly while the crew waited. Other times he'd bite, scratch, or simply wander off mid-scene. Despite the chaos, Barney's natural curiosity and expressive face made him perfect for the role. His scenes with Mantee carry genuine warmth, proof that sometimes the most difficult performers deliver the most memorable results. Number 4. The alien ships were movie recyclables. Those sleek, menacing slave ships pursuing Friday across the Martian surface had a secret connection to movie history. Designer Albert Nozaki, who had created the iconic Martian war machines for Byron Haskin's The War of the Worlds in 1953, constructed 3 new miniatures that closely resembled his earlier designs. It was a clever piece of visual continuity, linking 2 of Haskin's Martian films through similar aesthetics. The glowing engines and ominous hovering movements carried that same unsettling quality from the 1953 classic. The original theatrical poster features dramatic images of the astronauts struggling to survive on Mars. But look closely at the corner and you'll spot something odd. Mona the monkey was added to the artwork late in the game. Test audiences had complained that the film felt too bleak and serious. They wanted something cute, something to lighten the mood. So the studio quietly inserted the monkey into promotional materials, hoping it would soften the film's harsh reputation. It's a strange compromise between art and commerce. The poster promises both gritty survival drama and adorable animal sidekick. Somehow the film actually delivers both. Number 6. From flop to cult classic. Robinson Crusoe on Mars bombed hard at the box office. Audiences stayed away, critics were harsh, and the studio considered it a financial disaster. But the story didn't end there. Late-night television gave the film a second life. Throughout the 70s and 80s, it became a cable TV staple, playing on weekend movie marathons and science fiction showcases. A whole new generation discovered its strange charms. The film's thoughtful pacing and realistic approach to space survival found an audience that appreciated what made it different. Even Ridley Scott admitted rewatching it before making The Martian, drawn to its grounded approach to isolation and problem-solving. Number 7. Martian landscapes made of chalk and smoke. While Death Valley provided outdoor locations, interior Mars scenes were pure studio magic. Production designers created alien horizons using red sand, strategically placed mirrors, and thick clouds of chalk dust to fake atmospheric haze. The chalk particles caught the light in unexpected ways, creating that eerie, diffused glow that made everything feel otherworldly. It was cheap, practical, and surprisingly effective. The crew worked in masks between takes because the dust made breathing difficult. But under the camera's eye, those sound stages transformed into convincing alien terrain. Combined with matte paintings that extended the horizon, the illusion fooled audiences into believing they were watching a man genuinely stranded millions of miles from home. We're halfway through this journey to Mars, but the wildest secrets are still ahead. From oxygen candles that NASA actually used to the alien masters you never see on screen. If you're loving these hidden stories from classic sci-fi, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me which fact surprised you most so far. Your engagement helps us uncover more forgotten movie history. Alright, let's get back to the Red Planet. Number 8. The space survival that wasn't supposed to be sci-fi. The film started life as something completely different. Director Byron Haskin envisioned a serious, almost documentary-style survival drama about an astronaut using ingenuity and science to stay alive on Mars. No aliens, no laser battles, no flying saucers. Just one man, limited resources, and the harsh reality of an unforgiving planet. Haskin wanted to explore real problem-solving under extreme conditions, the kind of meticulous step-by-step survival that would later define films like Apollo 13 and The Martian. But studio executives at Paramount looked at the script and panicked. They worried audiences wouldn't sit through 90 minutes of a guy rationing oxygen and eating emergency rations. They wanted spectacle and marketability. They wanted something they could sell with exciting trailer moments and dramatic poster art. So aliens were mandated. Spaceships appeared in rewrites. Laser fights and chase sequences got written in, even though they had nothing to do with Haskin's original vision. The director fought against these changes, arguing they undermined the film's credibility and unique approach. But eventually he compromised, finding ways to incorporate studio demands while preserving as much of his survival drama as possible. The final film awkwardly straddles both visions, trying to be thoughtful survival drama and pulp adventure simultaneously. Some scenes feel ripped from a NASA training manual while others could be from Flash Gordon. Surprisingly, that tension gives the movie its unique flavor and strange appeal. It's serious enough to engage your brain but exciting enough to hold your attention. Neither fish nor fowl, it occupies this weird middle ground that somehow works despite itself. Number 9. NASA's real oxygen candles. One of the film's most scientifically accurate details involves the oxygen generation system, and it's easy to miss if you're not paying attention. The movie shows the astronaut using chemical candles that produce breathable oxygen through a combustion reaction. They look like ordinary road flares, glowing red as they burn. Most viewers probably assumed this was pure Hollywood invention, something that sounded scientific but had no basis in reality. They'd be completely wrong. These oxygen candles weren't made up for dramatic effect. They were inspired by genuine NASA experiments with magnesium-based oxygen generators designed for emergency situations in sealed environments. The technology was being actively developed during the early 1960s for potential use in spacecraft, submarines, and other scenarios where air supply could become critical. The candles work through a chemical reaction called chlorate candle oxygen generation. When ignited, they produce oxygen as a byproduct of combustion, allowing them to work even in oxygen-depleted atmospheres. It's counterintuitive because we think of fire as consuming oxygen, but these specialized candles actually create it. The detail was surprisingly ahead of its time, predicting technology that would later see real-world deployment on nuclear submarines and even the International Space Station. When NASA engineers eventually saw the film years later, this specific element caught their attention immediately. It demonstrated that someone involved in production, whether Haskin himself or one of those early NASA consultants, had actually done their homework. They dug into real research and incorporated it authentically. It's this kind of grounding detail that separates thoughtful science fiction from pure fantasy, giving the impossible just enough connection to reality to make audiences believe. Number 10. Critics hated it, until NASA didn't. When the film premiered in 1964, critics were brutal. They mocked the title mercilessly, calling it absurd and unmarketable. They dismissed the premise as ridiculous, complained about the pacing being too slow, and criticized the lack of action compared to other science fiction adventures of the era. Major newspapers gave it mediocre to negative reviews. The New York Times was dismissive. Variety called it forgettable. The movie seemed destined to be forgotten, just another failed attempt to cash in on the space race excitement. Box office numbers confirmed the critics' assessment. Audiences stayed away in droves, but something unexpected happened that changed the film's reputation completely. NASA engineers and scientists who saw the film, either out of curiosity or professional interest, came away genuinely impressed. They started talking about it at conferences and in technical journals. They praised its surprisingly accurate depiction of life support systems, the realistic portrayal of emergency procedures, and the honest examination of the psychological toll of isolation. These weren't laypeople being dazzled by special effects. These were professionals who understood the actual challenges of space survival. Some aerospace engineers called it one of the most realistic Mars movies of its time, far more grounded than the ray gun adventures and bug-eyed monster films dominating theaters. The film's attention to detail regarding oxygen management, food rationing, and problem-solving under pressure reflected real NASA planning for future Mars missions. That scientific seal of approval gave the film credibility it never received from mainstream reviewers. Word spread through academic and technical communities. The movie developed a reputation as the thinking person's space adventure, the one that actually understood what survival beyond Earth would entail. That underground respect helped it survive long enough to find its cult audience through television broadcasts and revival screenings. Number 11. A Mars with Gravity. Because budget. Mars has approximately 1/3 of Earth's gravity, roughly 38% to be precise. This would dramatically affect how everything moves. Astronauts would bounce with each step, objects would fall more slowly, and dust kicked up would hang in the air longer before settling. Any realistic depiction of Mars should show these effects constantly. But filming low-gravity sequences in 1964 would have been prohibitively expensive and technically challenging. Wire work was primitive compared to modern techniques. Slow-motion photography could help, but would require careful calibration for every single shot. Elaborate rigging systems would need to be built and maintained throughout production. The budget simply couldn't support it. So the filmmakers made a bold and somewhat controversial choice. They completely ignored the gravity issue. Characters walk, run, jump, and move exactly as they would on Earth. Rocks fall at normal speed. Dust behaves terrestrially. Nothing in the physical movement suggests they're on a different planet. For scientifically literate viewers, this was glaring and impossible to ignore. Some NASA consultants reportedly raised concerns during early development, arguing it would undermine the film's credibility. But Haskin made a calculated gamble. He bet that the film's other realistic details, the oxygen management, the survival techniques, the psychological accuracy, would provide enough credibility that viewers would willingly suspend disbelief about this one major scientific error. He focused the budget on things that could be shown convincingly rather than attempting something that would look cheap and unconvincing with available technology. Surprisingly, the strategy mostly worked. Most audiences didn't care or didn't notice. They were too engrossed in the story to worry about gravitational accuracy. It's a reminder that sometimes perfect scientific accuracy matters less than emotional engagement and compelling storytelling. You can break some rules if you follow enough others. Number 12. From War of the Worlds to Mars. Director Byron Haskin brought valuable experience from his 1953 triumph, The War of the Worlds. He recycled techniques, visual approaches, and even some miniatures from that earlier film. Both movies share the same glowing, otherworldly atmosphere, that distinctive use of color and light that makes alien worlds feel tangible yet unsettling. Haskin understood something fundamental about science fiction filmmaking. It's not about showing audiences everything in perfect detail. It's about suggesting the impossible through careful framing, strategic lighting, and emotional sound design. His experience with large-scale special effects on a shoestring budget served him perfectly here. The same creative problem-solving that made Martian war machines terrifying in 1953 now made the Red Planet feel genuinely alien a decade later. Watch both films back-to-back and you'll spot the visual DNA they share. The way spaceships glow against dark skies, the use of forced perspective to make miniatures feel massive, the reliance on color temperature to separate Earth scenes from alien environments. Haskin created a visual language for science fiction that influenced countless filmmakers who came after him. He proved you didn't need enormous budgets to transport audiences to other worlds, just imagination, discipline, and a willingness to make every frame count. Number 13. The Martians You Never See. Throughout the film, alien slave ships hunt Friday across the Martian landscape, but their masters are never shown. We never see who's piloting those craft or what they look like. No tentacles, no bug eyes, no elaborate creature costumes. According to the director, this was purely a budget decision. Creating convincing alien creatures would have been expensive and time-consuming, requiring prosthetics, makeup artists, and additional performers. But sometimes the best creative choices come from necessity. The absence of visible aliens accidentally made the movie far creepier than any rubber suit monster ever could. The unseen enemy became more threatening precisely because audiences had to imagine them. Every viewer's mind conjured something different, something personally frightening. The glowing slave ships felt more ominous without pilots visible through windows. The distant sirens and mechanical sounds suggested intelligence without defining it. This technique echoes the best horror films where what lurks just off-screen is always more terrifying than what you actually see. Decades later, filmmakers like Steven Spielberg would use the same principle in Jaws, keeping the shark hidden for most of the movie. Robinson Crusoe on Mars stumbled into this wisdom out of financial desperation, but the result elevated the entire film. Sometimes limitation breeds innovation, and what you don't show can be infinitely more powerful than the most elaborate creature effects money can buy. Number 14. Friday's name has biblical roots. The character Friday directly mirrors Daniel Defoe's original Robinson Crusoe servant from the 1719 novel. But this film made a deliberate change with significant implications that transformed a centuries-old story into something relevant for the 1960s. Friday isn't a naive native rescued from cannibals and converted to Christianity. He's a runaway alien slave escaping bondage and seeking freedom on his own terms. The shift adds layers of moral commentary about exploitation, dignity, and what it means to be truly human. In Defoe's novel, Friday is subordinate, grateful, and civilized by Crusoe. In this film, Friday is Draper's equal from the start, someone with his own language, culture, and survival skills. The friendship between Draper and Friday becomes about mutual respect and cooperation, not master and servant. They teach each other, they protect each other, they need each other to survive. This wasn't accidental. The filmmakers were working during the height of the civil rights movement, when questions about equality, freedom, and human dignity dominated American discourse. Making Friday a literal slave escaping oppression gave the adventure story unexpected depth and contemporary resonance. The film never preaches or becomes heavy-handed, but the subtext is impossible to miss. It's a subtle but meaningful update that makes the centuries-old story feel urgent and morally complex, proving that even pulp science fiction can wrestle with serious themes when handled with care and intelligence. Number 15. Real NASA input, sort of. Early in development, NASA consultants were brought in to review the script and provide technical advice. This wasn't just a publicity stunt. The filmmakers genuinely wanted credibility and realistic space procedures. They understood that audiences were becoming more sophisticated about space travel, especially after the excitement of the Mercury program and the race to the moon. NASA advisors helped design the spacecraft interior, advised on emergency protocols, and suggested realistic problems an astronaut might face during a Mars mission. Equipment malfunctions, oxygen depletion, food rationing, psychological isolation, all of these elements came from actual NASA research and planning documents. But then the studio executives got nervous. Test screenings suggested audiences wanted more excitement, more action, more spectacle, so aliens were added. Spaceship battles appeared. Ray guns showed up. Everything NASA had warned against. When the consultants saw the revised script with its flying saucers and laser fights, they quietly distanced themselves from the project. They'd signed on for hard science fiction, the kind of rigorous speculation that respected physics and real engineering challenges. They weren't eager to have their names associated with Hollywood fantasy and pulp adventure tropes. Some of their early contributions remained in the final film, particularly around life support systems, water recycling, and survival techniques. Those sequences feel different from the rest of the movie, more grounded and procedural. But the agency made sure their official involvement wasn't prominently featured in marketing materials. The film became a strange hybrid as a result, mixing genuine scientific insight with Hollywood fantasy in roughly equal measure. It's both more realistic than most science fiction of its era, and more ridiculous, often in the same scene. That tension between authenticity and entertainment defines the entire project, making it frustratingly uneven but also uniquely fascinating. Robinson Crusoe on Mars wasn't just another B-movie with a goofy title. It was an ambitious attempt to bring realistic space survival to the screen, compromised by studio demands but elevated by committed performances and surprising scientific accuracy. Byron Haskin proved that even with limited resources and creative interference, it's possible to make something thoughtful and strange. The film bombed in theaters but found its audience through persistence, late-night broadcasts, and the appreciation of actual rocket scientists. If you enjoyed uncovering these hidden stories, make sure to subscribe because the next trip through classic cinema's strangest corners might just be your favorite one yet.